I opened my eyes to the sound of silence. No alarms, no calls. Just the soft hum of the fridge and the gray morning light bleeding through the blinds. My body ached like I'd gone 10 rounds in a fight I didn't remember entering. But the real punch didn't come until I checked my phone. One missed call, 12:03 a.m., from Grant Delaney. And right below it, notice of immediate termination. No context, no conversation, no second chance. They said I failed to respond to an urgent escalation. But there was no emergency, no system down, no fire to put out, just a test disguised as a crisis designed to see if I'd jump when they snapped their fingers. After 7 years of building the most advanced military-grade AI they'd ever touched, I was erased overnight for missing one call the night after burying my mother, the night I finally slept after 11 days of non-stop coding. So tell me, was that loyalty or was that control? Before I tell you this story, where are you listening from? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted at work? Leave a comment if this hit close to home. You never know who else might need to hear it. For 7 years, my name was buried beneath product decks and polished presentations. Every algorithm, every failsafe, every line of Orca's core logic, I built it. Not from a template, not with a team, from scratch. The first version ran on a repurposed server in a windowless storage room behind our Seattle office. It crashed 6 times a day. I stayed every night until it didn't. While others went home, I rewrote machine learning routines until the fluorescent lights flickered off on their own. I missed weddings, holidays, even the last birthday my mother remembered. Not because I was chasing a raise or a title. I believed in the system we were building. I thought it would mean something. But no matter how hard I worked, someone else's name ended up on the slides. When investors asked who led the development, my boss, Kendra, would smile and say, "We've got a brilliant team behind the scenes." Behind the scenes? That was me. Always in the shadows, always the one cleaning up after bad launches and rushed demos. Once, I caught a major vulnerability the night before a defense review. I patched it within 3 hours. The next morning, they praised the intern who uploaded the fixed file. He thanked them, looked over at me, and said nothing. At first, I told myself it didn't matter, that the work would speak for itself. But systems don't speak, people do. And the people in the room made sure mine never did. I thought if I just stayed focused, stayed loyal, they'd see. Eventually. But loyalty without recognition becomes quiet erasure. And the more I gave, the easier it became for them to take. Until one night, they took everything. But not all at once. It started with a missed call, and the next morning a message I'll never forget. The night before everything fell apart, I finally closed my laptop at 11:46 p.m. I had just finished running the final stress test on Orca's response layer, a patch I'd coded after 3 days without proper sleep. My eyes were burning, my shoulders ached, and I hadn't eaten anything solid since Tuesday. Still, I stayed until the system returned green across every node. Then I grabbed my coat, walked out into the cold Seattle air, and went home. Home, if you could call it that, was a 1-bedroom apartment stacked with empty mugs and whiteboard sketches on the walls. I kicked off my shoes, collapsed onto the couch, and let sleep take me before I could even change out of my work clothes. My phone was on silent. Not intentionally, I'd forgotten to switch it back after the funeral. My mother had passed away 5 days earlier, and I'd spent the weekend coordinating her service alone. I didn't tell anyone at work, not because they didn't ask, but because they wouldn't have listened. That night, for the first time in almost 2 weeks, I slept. And at 2:03 a.m., the call came. One ring, then silence. I didn't hear it, I didn't dream it. I just breathed deep and unconscious, the kind of sleep that only comes when your body finally gives out. The next morning, the message was waiting. No second call, no follow-up, just one missed call from Grant Delaney, our deputy tech director. No voicemail, no Slack ping, nothing. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I assumed if it had been urgent, someone else would have tried again. That's how it worked, right? We were engineers, not soldiers. There were protocols. But I was wrong. That call wasn't a request, it was a test, and the real error wasn't in the code. It was in thinking I was still one of them. The next email would make that very clear. I woke up just after 6 a.m., still in the clothes from the night before. My neck hurt from sleeping on the couch, and my legs were tangled in the blanket I'd pulled halfway over myself. The sun was barely up, but the room had that still, muted light that made everything feel distant, like I hadn't really woken up yet. My phone was face down on the floor beside the coffee table. I reached for it, expecting the usual overnight Slack pings, or maybe a system alert. Instead, there it was. Subject, notice of immediate termination. Time, 5:58 a.m. At first, I thought it was a mistake. No greeting, no explanation, no signature. Just one line. You are hereby terminated for failure to respond to an urgent escalation. I blinked, read it again. Nothing changed. My Slack account, already deactivated. Email, locked. Project access, gone. It was like someone flipped a switch and I was erased. I sat up slowly, my blouse still wrinkled from the day before. The room didn't move, the coffee table didn't care. But something inside me did. 7 years. That's how long I'd worked on Orca. That's how long I'd given up weekends, holidays, entire parts of myself. And now I was gone, with one click, without a meeting, without a voice, without a chance to speak. I scrolled back through my call history. There it was, 2:03 a.m. One missed call. That was all it took. I tried to stay calm, tried to breathe through it like I had every time something unfair happened, and I told myself to wait it out. But this was different. This wasn't frustration. It was silence, sharp, cold, and calculated. And somewhere deep in my gut, something started to twist, because the more I stared at that message, the more it felt like this had been planned all along. And if that was true, then maybe that missed call wasn't a mistake at all. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the email. My fingers hovered above the screen, unsure of what to do next. Not because I didn't know what was happening, but because I couldn't believe how fast it had all vanished. One call, one email, 7 years gone, like it never happened. Then something clicked. I still had my personal laptop. When you work in systems architecture long enough, you learn to keep a few backdoors. Not to break rules, but to stay ahead of the ones who bend them. I logged in. Access to the production servers was gone, as expected, but the mirror node I'd built for testing, still active, quiet, unnoticed, and connected. I navigated to the audit logs, HR communications, timestamps, internal triggers. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, just something that made it make sense. And then I saw it. Termination request initiated, 11:41 p.m. Notice delivery scheduled, 5:58 a.m. Phone call attempt, 2:03 a.m. I froze. They didn't fire me because I missed the call. They made the call after they'd already decided to fire me. The whole thing, the message, the timing, the silence, it wasn't an escalation. It was theater, a fake emergency, a loyalty test they never intended me to pass. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding in a rhythm too steady to be fear. It was something else. Something heavier. This wasn't incompetence. This was deliberate. And it wasn't just about getting me out. It was about making it look like I failed. As if everything I'd built, everything I'd sacrificed, could be reduced to one missed call. I stared at the glowing screen, the cold trail of logs that told the story better than anyone in that office ever would. They wanted me gone, and they wanted it to seem justified. But what they didn't realize was that the system I built had been watching too, and it had already started responding. My hands moved on instinct, the kind of muscle memory that comes after years of building something you know better than your own reflection. I switched over to the private mirror node, the one I kept off book, outside the main logs, tucked away for testing. Not because I didn't trust the team, but because I knew the company, and I knew what they were capable of. It loaded slowly, then pulsed to life. Orca was still running. Not operational, not publicly live, but online. Breathing, silent, like it knew something was wrong. I scrolled through the diagnostics. Layer by layer, system by system, every module reported stable except one. Layer 9B, status, frozen trigger external authorization failure, time of execution 5:58 a.m., the exact moment the termination email hit my inbox. I sat back in my chair, trying to process what I was looking at. That Layer 9B wasn't in the official documentation. It wasn't part of any handoff or deployment chart, because I never submitted it. I built it quietly 2 years ago after a long night in the ICU waiting room when my father had surgery. While the monitors beeped in the background, I wrote code. Not for speed, not for optimization, but for protection. Orca needed to know what to do if something went wrong, not technically, politically. I called it the heartbeat layer. A silent check for one condition. If the system detects termination of its originator without biometric handoff, it locks. No alerts, no noise, just stillness. A system pause written not in anger, but in defense. I never told anyone about it, not because I wanted to hide, but because I knew if I mentioned it, they'd erase me. But Orca hadn't forgotten. And when the email came through, it responded exactly as I taught it to, not with fire, not with vengeance, but with silence. A silence that somewhere inside their offices was about to become very loud. It didn't happen all at once. It was quiet, subtle, almost polite. The first time they introduced the new product at a press event, Orca, they called it the future of adaptive defense AI. I watched from the back of the room as Kendra, the VP of Strategy, gestured toward a slide with system diagrams I'd drawn by hand. This was a team effort, she smiled. My name wasn't on the slide. I told myself it didn't matter. The work was what mattered, right? Then came the budget review meeting, where I proposed delaying the next phase for better redundancy testing. Too cautious, Grant said. We need to move fast to stay competitive. The room nodded. 2 weeks later, the system crashed, mid-simulation, exactly what I'd warned about. No one mentioned my memo. No one asked why we skipped the test. I started documenting everything. Timestamps, design logs, private notes. Just in case. At one all-hands meeting, they showed a project roadmap complete with every milestone I delivered under impossible deadlines. Someone asked who handled core integration. Oh, backend handled it, Kendra replied. I was backend now, not Avery, not lead architect, just backend. I sat through meetings where my designs were called overbuilt, my cautions labeled paranoia, and my face invisible. The intern got more credit for uploading builds than I did for creating the architecture from scratch. And when I asked why I wasn't on the patent filing draft, legal said, "We assumed you were already listed somewhere else." By then, I stopped asking. I stopped correcting. I started storing. Because somewhere between the erased names and the muted credit, I realized something. They weren't just leaving me out. They were slowly writing me out. And deep down, I knew if the day ever came when they wanted to finish the job, I'd need a way to prove I was ever there. So that night, I encrypted the final version of Orca's heartbeat layer, wrote it into an isolated mirror node, and sealed it with my own biometric signature. They thought they could erase me, but I'd already written myself into the code. The boardroom was glowing. Polished wood table, 12 white leather chairs. 4 men in navy suits from the Department of Defense, all seated with quiet anticipation. A massive screen spanned the far wall, already cued with Zephyros branding, and an opening slide, Orca, Redefining Autonomy in Modern Warfare. Grant Delaney adjusted his tie as he walked in, smile practiced and steady. To his right, Kendra whispered something to the AV team, then nodded toward the control console. Cameras were already rolling, discreet but sharp. Everything was perfectly staged. Except the system wouldn't load. Behind the glass, 2 junior engineers were typing furiously. The screen remained frozen at a diagnostic interface no one had expected to appear. A thin red line blinked at the top corner. Authorization layer incomplete. Grant's jaw twitched. He leaned toward the tech lead. Use the backup. We tried, the engineer whispered back. The override request failed. Then spoof the signature. We can't. The smile on Grant's face never fully dropped, but it cracked. Just a little. He stepped to the podium, nodded to the investors, and began, "Thank you all for being here. Today, we'll walk you through Orca's real-time adaptive control features." Meanwhile, I watched from my apartment, coffee in hand, laptop open to the mirror node. Every core layer pulsed green except one. Heartbeat layer, status, locked. Authorization, missing. Override attempts, 3. I didn't need to say a word. The system was saying it for me. Back in the demo room, another technician leaned in. "Sir, layer 9B isn't responding. We think it's tied to a biometric signature that was never submitted." Grant's voice faltered just for a moment before he recovered. "We're just verifying a secondary security layer, standard protocol." But the room was no longer with him. The silence said it all. They had built the launch around a system they didn't fully understand, and now it wasn't listening. Because I had never given them permission to use it. And Orca, it remembered exactly who it was waiting for. I didn't say a word. Not when the demo froze, not when the override failed, not when Grant's voice slipped for half a second on the live stream, just enough for the room to notice. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, coffee cooling beside me. The mirror node showed it all. Heartbeat layer locked, override attempts stacking. 4 now, all denied. Each one logged in precise time. Each one met with stillness. My phone buzzed again. Logan Kim, one of the engineers I used to mentor. His message was short. "They're spiraling. Blaine's blaming you. Want to talk?" I didn't reply. The emails came next, first from legal, then from Grant, then Kendra. Subject lines dancing between urgency and politeness. Authorization, clarification request, time-sensitive question about biometric access, quick call. No one was asking what went wrong with the system. They were asking what they missed. And the answer was simple. Me. They thought they could remove the person without disturbing the product, but Orca wasn't built like that. It wasn't just code, it was consequence. It listened to intent, and it knew when something was off. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. I could have replied, could have made a call, offered an explanation, even calmed things down. But I didn't, because the silence wasn't an accident anymore. It was my strategy. Let them scramble. Let them try back doors I sealed 2 years ago. Let them wonder why the system won't respond to commands it used to recognize. They wanted clean demos, pretty slides, and a name they could erase from the footer. They got all of that, except the part they needed most. And the longer I stayed quiet, the more clearly they heard me. Because in every locked screen, in every failed override, in every unanswered message, the system was speaking. And what it was saying was that I had never truly left. They just hadn't noticed until now. They called it a resolution meeting. 10 p.m. sharp, conference room 6B. One last chance to align before further consequences unfold. Their words, not mine. I arrived 2 minutes early. No lawyers on my side. No legal rep behind me. Just me, a quiet bag over my shoulder, and the weight of what I already knew. Inside the room, Blaine, arms crossed. Kendra, eyes glued to her tablet. Grant, fidgeting with his pen. Legal counsel seated with their laptops open, already glowing like weapons they weren't sure how to use. No one smiled. No one spoke. I sat down, calm, straight-backed. They waited for me to say something. I didn't. So the associate GC broke the silence. "We're here in good faith, Avery. The system lockdown is causing irreparable disruption. We believe there's been a misunderstanding regarding your access protocols." I looked at him. Steady. There's no misunderstanding, I said. The system is doing exactly what it was built to do. Blaine leaned forward, tone sharp. You can't seriously be holding a billion-dollar deployment hostage over a miscommunication. I didn't flinch. This isn't about a miscommunication, I said. It's about authorship, attribution. The system knows who created it, and it's waiting for her signature. I pulled out a single printed sheet and slid it across the table. Clause 9.17, originator authorization required for strategic deployment, filed, stamped, enforceable, hidden in plain sight. You signed this, I said. You just never thought I'd use it. One of the lawyers paled. Another minimized their notes and started typing frantically. You have two options, I continued. Publicly acknowledge the architectural authorship, including the heartbeat layer, or the system begins irreversible shutdown within 72 hours. Silence. Kendra's jaw tightened. Grant finally stopped spinning his pen. They weren't used to this version of me, the one not asking to be heard, but simply stating terms. And I didn't come for money. I came for the truth. They could either face it or lose everything trying to avoid it. I stood. I'll expect your decision in writing. And as I walked out of that room for the first time in years, they were the ones left without access. The response came the next morning. No dramatic phone call, no press conference, just a single PDF attached to an email with the subject line, Formal Resolution, Internal Use Only. I opened it slowly. Not because I doubted what it would say, but because part of me still expected some clever loophole, some polished way to dodge accountability without saying what needed to be said. But there it was, page 1, bold type. We acknowledge that the core infrastructure of the Orca system, including the heartbeat layer and foundational security protocols, were solely authored and implemented by Avery Quinn. No footnotes, no team contribution language, just my name. Finally, in the record, they didn't offer a settlement. They didn't need to, because I never asked for one. What I wanted couldn't be bought. It had to be written. Later that week, I flew to Vermont, a small, independent innovation lab, one that didn't care about boardrooms or buzzwords. The CEO met me in jeans and a flannel shirt. She didn't shake my hand right away. She just said, "You've already proven enough. We're here to protect what you built." They gave me a workspace, a quiet team, and a fresh system to architect one where every contributor had their name on the blueprint, not just the press release. At the entrance to the dev floor, someone had already mounted a brushed steel plaque. Simple, clean letters, Chief Architect, Avery Quinn. I didn't ask for it. They did it anyway. And for the first time in years, I felt still. No more locked accounts, no more midnight loyalty tests, no more erasures disguised as policy. Just one simple truth. I had never needed to fight for power. I only needed to reclaim my name. That night, I sat by the window with my laptop closed and my phone quiet. The world moved on, like it always does. But I knew better now. Some systems break, others defend themselves. And the ones built with truth, they remember exactly who created them. And sometimes they speak for her when no one else would. By the time the headlines rolled out, the damage was done. Zephyro's stock had dropped 18% in 3 days. Their defense contract suspended. The public demo footage, the one where Grant's voice cracked and the screen froze, went viral within hours. They issued a formal correction, a carefully worded statement. My name was included this time, right beneath the system description. No press release could undo what they tried to erase. But I didn't need them to. I already had what mattered. The team in Vermont moved fast. We redeployed Orca under a new name, rebuilt its core around transparency, and submitted for independent accreditation. And this time, my name was etched into the foundation, not just as creator, but as protector. As for Blaine, Grant, Kendra, they kept their titles for a while. But trust is a currency. Once it's gone, no signature can bring it back. And me, I sleep now, Not out of exhaustion, but peace. Because here's what I've learned. You can fire someone's title. You can delete their access. You can strip them from the credits and pretend they were never there. But you can't erase the truth. And you can't fire integrity. Real work, the kind built through sacrifice, conviction, and quiet consistency, it leaves a mark deeper than logos or launch decks. It lives in the systems we build and the people who remember why we built them in the first place. If you're still listening, maybe you felt this too. Maybe you've been overlooked, replaced, or quietly pushed aside. But just because they stop saying your name doesn't mean the work forgets you. So tell me, have you ever been pushed out of something you helped build? What did you do next? Leave a comment if this story resonated. Someone else out there might need to hear it today.